Participate in a conversation with once conservative, now liberal Midwest mastered prepared special education high school teacher and a self-proclaimed devil's advocate, East Coast conservative liberal, baccalaureate prepared registered nurse. These two strangers met, became instant friends, and realized their conversations are candid and epic. So join us weekly, ask us questions, and listen to these profoundly candid friends try to solve the world's problems, one discussion at a time.
Hey, welcome to another exciting episode of The New Theory with Monet and Jared, aka TNT with MJ. I am Jared.
I'm Monet.
And together we are teaching minds
and nurturing souls.
And Monet, I know you can agree with this when I say that we are so excited to be back this week. It's been a while since we've been able to connect with each other and be able to have these kinds of conversations. So we are so thankful to be able to get our schedules coalesce.
Finally. Exactly.
So, with that being said, I will also let it be known that this will be our final episode for what we're going to call a season. So that way we can take a few weeks off, enjoy a little bit of our break, let Monet settle into her new schedule, and then we'll be back end of July-ish.
Yes, because Jared has a lot going on. And I really think this will also give him time and energy to focus on his rallies that he's going to conduct. I wish I wasn't working this weekend because trust me, I looked at flights to Arkansas and I was like, this is definitely doable. Like I could have just flown down. I know. I want to be a part of it because where you're going to take Arkansas is going to be to a phenomenal place. They're going to have, I'm serious, Jared, they're going to use you in books. I have to claim it that way because they need a foundation. They don't know how to bridge the gap.
No.
And I think, I'm talking about essentially this rally that you're conducting this weekend with regards to, and what's the platform again? I mean, I know it. I just want you to say
Pledge to teach the truth.
Pledge to teach the truth.
It's a day of action for educators across the nation to pledge to teach the truth and publicly demonstrate that platform and let their voices be heard. And so I'm humbled to be able to organize one myself here in Arkansas. And right now, as it stands, mine is the only one in Arkansas. And so that in of itself is humbling, but just makes it all the more nerve-wracking, actually.
I think that's amazing.
I'm excited to be able to be a part of that day of action.
Yes.
And join at least 27 other states across this nation protesting legislation that would or has already been put into place or would prohibit any kind of teaching from the 1619 Project or as generic, if you will, as teaching anything that's divisive along the lines of race, gender, and sexual orientation. So that's what the Day of Action is all about, is educators come together and putting our voices together to just say, no, we refuse to lie to our students. We're not going to do it. We will teach the truth. And speaking of one of the interviews that I was honored and privileged to be part of yesterday, I let the journalists know that, and we ended on this note actually, is that there's not many things that I'm willing to lose my license over, but the truth and speaking the truth, teaching the truth, that is certainly one of them.
Yeah. No, I don't want you to lose your license for nothing because teaching the truth shouldn't be a deal breaker for anybody.
It shouldn't.
The thing is, they don't, the small-sighted people, the people that are not engaged with knowing how to facilitate the truth, they don't see it. All they see is rhetoric and negativity. All they feel as though their ideas and their history is going to be obliterated and they don't feel as though, goodness is going to come out of it. The beauty is, it's like there's different angles, there's different perspectives, and it is going to make people say, I'm still proud to be an American.
Sure.
It's just that, there's certain mistakes that we made, and it's now incumbent upon us to make those changes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have to teach it. We have to learn. This is what happened, and this is how we're not going to let this happen. And that, again, and you've always said it, it broadens the mind, which is the foundation for critical thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We lost it. We lost critical thinking skills because we don't hunt anymore like that. We don't, you know what I'm saying? Because you have to have foresight when you're hunting, gathering, and preparation. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of in that instant gratification society. We got to see it now, got to do it now. Guess what? I'm on vacation now, and everybody knows, and this is what we're doing. Instead of, hey, where were you? Oh, you went away for a while. Oh, this is what you did. That's amazing. That's enlightening. That's inspiring. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. And with us being, with you taking this platform and helping the world realize. I mean, this is what the podcast has been about for the past year.
Yeah, you're right.
Nurturing souls, and, enlightening, educating minds. Come on.
Yeah, you're right.
So this is a beautiful thing for you, Jared. I'm
Thank
so
you.
like, oh my God, over the moon. Over the moon.
Yes. I'm excited about it. I'm excited and anxious. And, but, again, and I've said this many times before, it's not about me. You asked this in our pre-conversation, if I've got my speech ready. And that's why I don't have one, because it's not about me. I'm just there letting it be known that, hey, this type of legislation, this type of censorship, because that's what it boils down to, is censorship.
Ooh, that's the God's
the Republicans, right wing, whatever you want to, they like to use cancel culture or other in the terms of woke and try to flip it around. And so now I'm going to use their words and use censorship.
Yes.
And use one of their words and just call it censorship, because that's what they've been wanting to say. So anyway, so that's what it boils down to. We're not going to, and we're going to listen. We're not going to, I want to say we're not going to take it, but I also don't want to imply any kind of, any kind of further retribution, if you will, or retaliation. But at the same time, I go back to what I said earlier, and that is, there's not many things I'm willing to lose my license over, but this is one of them, because it comes down to money. It really does. And that's what these bills are. That's the carrot in these bills, is that money.
Yes, it is all about money. But Jared, you froze a little bit on my end.
Oh, I'm sorry. What do I need to catch you up on?
That's all right.
Okay.
We'll figure out it when you edit.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, no, the penalty, if you will, for schools or districts that would teach along those lines, should these bills be passed, is losing funding.
That's horrible.
Do you think the district is going to allow that in one employee to cost them funding?
Of course not. So therefore, they might as well get rid of them, because
they could even save money by getting rid of me and paying the fine or whatever else they need, or whatever they need to do to cut, whatever, Anyway, that's.
But there's information that needs to be like, and you're the one that posted the post about Louis Armstrong. No,
probably
Harry Kaufman did, about Louis Armstrong being raised in a Jewish community.
Wow. Didn't know that. That's interesting.
I don't know. I found that and I was just like, what?
And see that
he could speak Yiddish and everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's like, what is that? That means that some certain communities aren't closed off to each other. Just because you think they are doesn't mean. Do you know what I'm saying? And It's like, they're like, oh, that's one incident. No. Anytime you meet a good a kind, compassionate person, Ah, yes, that's another one of our lessons for today. We're now going to, from going henceforth, we're going to be using compassion as our word of direction and foundation, because where kindness is an act, one or two, compassion encompasses all. This is what Jared taught me today. This is why he's like, Monet, I challenge your kindness. Because we both have major compassion. We do. We both. And it takes a reflective mind to say, hey, let me look back. Oh, you know what? This is more compassion. This is more compassionate than kindness. Because it's not just being, kind for this moment. This is compassion that you keep for the rest of your life. Because it implies empathy, right? Jared, is that what you said?
Empathy it embodies empathy, love, and action.
That's why it's called compassion.
I could go biblical. So, we are kind of, I'm in the Bible Belt. So I could easily go biblical on that. Love your neighbor, that requires action. That requires action.
That is definitely an act of compassion.
You have to recognize, and first off, you got to recognize the person that you're encountering is human. So let's start there.
Exactly.
And equal of your love. But you recognize that person's suffering. You empathize with it. You not necessarily understand it, but you see it and you understand. And you see that the person is suffering. And love requires you to say, or to question, or to just simply say, I want to suffer with you. I want to help you go through that. And I want to end and alleviate that suffering to the best of my ability, or help you go through it. That's the action. That's what love requires. That's the kind of love that, again, going biblical, but that's the required, and even then, I don't even have to go biblical with it, because Jesus historically was a man. He was a rabbi. He was a teacher. He had followers. He had disciples. This is all proven. So therefore, he was a radical preacher, a radical rabbi.
Yes, he was.
So that being said, but that's the kind of love that Jesus is talking about when he says
that level of compassion.
That level of compassion. You need to empathize and help alleviate.
Yes.
And it's not about, and I can hear some voices say, well, Jared, what about that white savior complex? It's not about that.
No, we're moving on from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not about that at all. And call, it's like in a language, call a spade a spade. This is an act of kindness and compassion. Let's just leave it there. Yeah. Don't overanalyze it. Let's come to a mutual understanding and leave certain aspects of the past in the past with regards to these enlightened acts of kindness. We gotta. It comes a time where you're so upset with Black people. I'm a Black person, have been so upset at some white people. And even when there was a blatant act of sheer compassion and kindness, and I'm just gonna be brutally honest, I still may have looked at the white person like, you're only doing it because of your guilt or whatever. So, and you don't want to write off people like that. And it's like, then how do we sift through the white people that are doing it for notoriety and, I don't know, publicity.
Right.
As opposed to the white people that are just like, yeah, I just want to be a part of this, to have us all be able to sit down at the table and feel like we are really brothers and sisters. The thing is, I know being a minority, my senses are very heightened. I'm very triggered by, some people's responses to me, some white people's responses to me. And I can tell a lot of times more than not when they're being genuine and when it's being disingenuous. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Playing devil's advocate, going back to what you were saying, as far as weeding out those who are doing it for notoriety and those who are genuinely doing it. um, I come to the question, or I come back to that question, excuse me, of not question, it just fell out a statement that racism is a white man's problem or white person's problem, and it's only a white person or white people that are going to be able to fix it.
Okay, we had this conversation
We've had a little bit of this
episodes
conversation.
ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
The thing is, anything that affects society as a whole, society has to be a part of it. Living in an area, yeah. So whoever's in the society and living in an area that's densely populated by minorities and living in an environment that's densely populated by white people. I've lived in an all-white neighborhood, so forth and so on. When you live in an all-white neighborhood, you're like, I don't see where the problem is. Because, we don't have many minorities here. Our interactions are very cordial when we meet one another, and that's it. And what has to be brought to everyone's attention is our foundation of education, our understanding of people, is it based off of a textbook or a family? Like, this is how Mexicans act. This is how Chinese people act. Like, did you get that from your grandma? Or can you be in an environment where you're like, okay, I didn't know all Chinese people did that. Oh, wow. We share that. Mm-hmm. Like, you show it on a video. My question is, all right, so that's that one video. Some people that never live near Chinese people, unless they go to a Chinese restaurant, maybe some of them are Cambodian. I mean, we don't know. So then you're just going to assume people that have this certain phenotype, they must be of Chinese descent or Asian, whereas a lot of them are not from Chinese descent. I mean, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but the fact of the matter is, it's like, did Asian Lives Matter campaign affect a lot of white people? They're like, well, I don't even live around them, so it's not even bothering me. And I don't
That's
have
a really good point.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the truth. Like, that's looking at it from a different perspective. Black Lives Matter, same case. I don't live around a lot of black people, and the ones I have, is Pete at the grocery market, and we seem to have a good relationship. I never called him a nigger, so like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem. But then when you hear about police reform, this is where the education comes in. Let's have these conversations, communities. You can't just be like, well, police patrol our neighborhood and keep all the riffraff under control. I'm really happy. Okay. But then does that riffraff come from an environment where Jim Crow was a factor in their grandparents and parents' lives? So that leaves a lot of trauma. Mm-hmm. Trauma leads to a lot of chaotic, erratic behaviors.
Yeah.
And non-responsibility in those behaviors. And then you have black people that are like, but I went to work and my parents went to work and I got a job. It's just the problem is in the people. Sometimes some of those, when I meet with black people, that be like, well, why can't all black people just, not have problems with each other, and black people still spout black on black crime and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, as a whole, as a community, we have been victimized by ignorance. And even though some of us have quote unquote made it out, there's still bias. Like if I'm an educated black person that has a career, because something a white person will say that'll be like judgmental, but it's like, let's get away from that. Let's just get to that one individual that just happens to be a little crazy and not lump them all in together. That's verbiage that needs to transcend every community.
Yeah.
This level of compassion, like understanding, is that why like they're over policed? So therefore, if you over police, you're going to have more assailants and more acts of crime, more people that are antagonized or falsely accused of, crime. I mean, there's just so much, but but this whole protest is based off of just education, focusing on how do we blend the truth with what we're being taught without making it feel like so much has changed. Because once you do that, Jared, you're dealing with people that love this level of consistency that has been happening. Mm-hmm. And they are invested. It's like, we have insurance that if we keep people's mindsets like this, this behavior is going to continue. This, this level of ignorance is going to be pervasive.
Mm-hmm.
And being changed is difficult. It's scary for a lot of people, Jared. They don't understand it. And it's like, damn, who are we to start pulling the curtain?
But my question back would be, does it really affect your current position for you to acknowledge these atrocities and acknowledge that this history happened and acknowledge that maybe your ancestors had something to do with it? But does that mean that you need to have this overwhelming guilt and change positions and change jobs and move away and try to do all these other things because now you're whatever else? No. So again, how does it affect you?
But Jared, if I was an
in
old white man, and I'm saying this is what got me through life. If I was an old white man and I was saying this is what got me through life, how then is knowing that, okay, so now all you're teaching us is that my ancestors have done something really horrible to get what they got. This is then just going to feed into this whole reparations nonsense that Black people want. Look, their people were enslaved, however you want to look at it, whether it was their own people selling them or white colonials going over and selling them. We can't change that. We can't. So what's the rebuttal?
Right, but what difference does it make whether you have, does it really affect you personally to have that knowledge? Just acknowledge the fact that it happened and that there's the history that you were taught is incomplete. Wouldn't you want to know the details? Wouldn't you want to fill in those gaps?
Jared, to me, it felt very complete. This is what happened. We got over it. We fought a war. It's over. Let's let it be over. Why now do we have to start injecting all this other stuff?
Well, and this is where I'm going to hit you where it hurts. Let me ask you, would you rather be white and poor or Black and poor?
Poor is poor. We all were poor. I mean, you're asking me if I wanted to switch my race?
I'm getting you to understand perspective. See what we're doing here, folks?
I'm hoping that what the response by someone who is above 50 or 40 and they're white, they would realize that choosing to be white and poor is acknowledgement of white privilege.
That's my point.
But it's like the fear is that you're going to take my identity of white privilege away. You're going to, all of a sudden, we're going to all have to have barbecues together. And sometimes, no. And that's what I really
That's not what I was getting at.
That's not what I'm getting at at all. And this is what has to be explained to them. It's just compassion for each other.
Exactly.
And here's the deal.
But I don't care what you think. I don't care what you believe, as long as you're not infringing on me and trying to shove it down my throat.
That is the biggest fucking problem in this whole situation. The fear of infringement on my lifestyle and my ideology. Because I have supported this my entire life. My grandparents, my parents, my kids, we all know this way of life. Now are we gonna all have to start listening to rap music or something? I'm just saying, like that's some of their fears. And it's like, we're just gonna look at each other as if we're all equal for the first time in all of our lives, and realize it's not a bad feeling to look at someone and feel equal to them. To feel and stop assuming that every minority you come across has had some deficit to deal with, or some.
I would even say any minority that you come across and generalizing the entire group
race
based on that one individual.
And that transcends all communities. So Asian people can't look at white people and think that all of them are racist or ignorant.
But no, I'm not like those other white people, so you can't claim me. So I'm not part of that. I'm not like those other white people. So that's another
within the white community. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So we can't look. at work, I was at work the other day, and I work in New York, where there's a lot of transplants. Okay, I work with. I'm just gonna say one white woman. She identifies with New York culture as if she was raised there, but she was raised in another Midwest culture, a Midwestern state.
Mm.
Then another one who definitely identifies with her Midwestern culture. She sounds it, she acts like it, but she just happens to work and always wanted the experience of New York because of the history. Who's I know for a fact, parents voted for Trump and still want Trump to run in the future elections. Real shit. Then I have another born and raised white New Yorker who is, and it is Catholic. So that's like, oh wait, she's not Jewish. Exactly. With that being said, all three of them having a conversation with me. The one that's a New Yorker was trying to say, and some of these people voted for Trump, aren't they? And I'm trying to deflect from that because if you already know you're not voting for Trump, we're done. There's no more discussion. We don't have to bash him when we're in the company of people that support him. Because sometimes when you're in a cult, you don't know you're in a cult. When you're perpetuating this mindset, this ideology, it's because it makes it feel comfortable to you. Like most of us that voted for Biden don't even like him, okay? We just didn't want the other for real. Because we could see via critical thinking, the mindset of the people are going to stay dampered and stay controlled and like hidden. And they're going to placate us with $2 and something change in gas. And like, see, we're taking care of you. And you're really not because we're getting it in the back end. But you don't see that, okay? Because if I start telling you how this is fragile, this is going to fall apart, this can't be sustained, this isn't going to work, you want to blame it on all that Democrat Republican shit. We're done with that. That was a mindset. And I mean, look, you stormed the Capitol for heaven's sakes. And y'all had people, even people that weren't there, were supporting it. You still don't realize how much of a psychotic event that was. January 6th is going to be megaphone blown out. Like that's an act of sincere terrorism. And anybody that supports that or wanted that to happen, you're a traitor. You're a straight up traitor. Period. And that we're still going to perpetuate those conversations so that we can teach like this is not acceptable. That behavior and that support of that behavior is not acceptable.
Yep.
And we as a nation have to educate ourselves on what is really good. I mean, it's not, it goes beyond like wearing white after Labor Day shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not that kind of, we're talking like, you didn't agree with what happened, the foundation. Normally, how many elections have come and gone? And people are just like, sorry, it's getting loud.
You're good.
They still need to be taught that this is not acceptable.
Yeah.
And we know that. But now it's like, why? Because you can tell a child, don't touch that, don't touch that, don't touch that. It's hot. They're like, what's hot? What does that mean? What does that mean? Until they burn their hand. Well, now I guess they feel like their history being taken away from them. It's like, you're getting rid of these monuments. They didn't God, now I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, Jared. Because it's like, we're talking common sense. People have 30 seconds. Once they're uninterested, they're done. They don't give a shit what the hell else you have to say. So, and with that being said,
I actually had a similar conversation with a couple of older white men a few days ago.
What happened?
So one gentleman he was the one that I mainly talked to. The other guy that was there, he quickly pointed out, it's like, yo, I'm just your basic redneck. I'm like, okay, cool. And I started out the conversation saying, you know what, that's cool, because I don't care what you believe, what you think, whatever. Are you a kind person? You really, and that's what led me to the whole compassion thing afterwards. After I reflected on that conversation, it's like, it needs to be from at least from my perspective, it needs to be more than just kindness.
Oh,
it needs to be compassion.
Yeah.
Because compassion also warrants this, I'm on alert.
Yeah.
And not kindness like, oh, here, let me open the door for you.
Yeah.
Totally different thing.
Your head, you said that in one of our recordings, your head's on a swivel.
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
looking
You're looking for
around.
those opportunities. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to be compassionate.
Exactly. And so when I said that, when I started the conversation with that and they agreed, we already had common footing and we were good. And so anything I said after that, it was just kind of tiptoeing away my wording on how to present the information. Because really all I did at that point was just educate them. You know, the guy wanted to talk to me about Juneteenth and the Tulsa massacre, and was making
wow, they wanted to talk about that.
He was making it synonymous. He was making
With?
both events synonymous. He did not know. Legitimately did not know. And
that he thought that Juneteenth was about the Tulsa. Oh, he didn't know that it was
exactly
when the slaves found out 2 years later that they were quote unquote free. Oh,
right. And so when he got done talking and Brayton talking about that, and just feel like he was being shoved down his throat and stuff like that, I'm like, well, let me correct some things. And so I explained Juneteenth, then I explained the Tulsa massacre, then I explained to him why it's being crammed down his throat, quote unquote. It's because, one, we're looking at the centennial of that event. Two, that was fucking deliberately covered up. And it's only been within what, to my knowledge anyway, within the last 2 years that's been brought up. You know what I'm saying? So it's extremely unknown knowledge, unknown history that needs to be taught. And just like the 1919 Elaine massacre in Arkansas. You know, similar situation, you know, an entire community of black people just wiped out because of false accusation, of course. Or God forbid, a fucking misunderstanding that could have been worked out with just a few words. Anyway.
But it's like, why?
And so when I was explaining that to him,
yeah.
So after explaining that, he's like, oh, wow. And so the one guy who said he was a redneck, every now and then he would stop by and say, this is all new to me. I'm learning stuff new here today. I don't know what's going on. I didn't know anything about this. I wasn't taught this at all. This is all new to me. It's like, stick around.
And this gives a foundation.
But it was a positive conversation is my point. And you know, I said something to the effect of, it's incumbent upon us as white men to learn that history.
Yeah.
And rectify that we were not necessarily part of that, but we are products of those decisions and of those actions. And we need to understand that and then come to an understanding of what now can we do with that knowledge? And what can I do now to not continue that system of racism?
Yeah.
And he's like, you're right. All right, have a great day.
I mean, like, but my thing is, you love your brother. You as a white man, if you were confronted with that, how long would it take for you to lament over it? Honestly.
One more time.
I'm talking to the Jared about 7 years ago.
Okay.
If somebody would have came up with this information to you and be like, oh, that's interesting. How long would you have it resonate inside your head?
You know what? That's a good point. And if it was, it would be a conversation that I would have, because you're talking the Jared 7 or 8 years ago. You're, you know, I'm married, kids. So I would at least have the conversation with my wife.
You would have gone home and been like, hey,
yeah,
guess what
I would have taken that home.
Talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the objective.
And then whatever happened after that, you know, and that's the objective. And, you know, and speaking of my wife, she's like, hopefully you planted a seed. I'm like, yeah. As much as I want to take her hammer up to their head and say, just fucking listen. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Take us home.
Fucking pay attention and wake up. Just kidding.
Fortunately, we all want to do that, but we know for a fact we cannot.
No, you're right. You're right. And that's why we protest. That's when we hit the streets. That's when
When
we
we
get
say,
out.
hey, we have
And
something to say.
exactly. We got a message and you need to hear it.
Mhm.
And hopefully there'll be enough people that agree with that message, and we'll see
Well,
how
I
Saturday goes.
put Grant on it. Grant be starting protests and stuff. I'm surprised you're not friends with him. He's one of
I don't
the
know who Grant
supporters.
is.
I know, right? And I was like, wait, he's
So
in
that's why I'm not
Arkansas.
friends with the guy. I don't know.
I met Grant when we were interviewing whatchamacallit, the senator. Or
Dan Whitfield.
yes, he's one of Dan Whitfield's supporters. So we became friends off of one of his campaigns. Mm-hmm. And he was like doing the Black Lives Matter protests, like starting, plus he's LGBTQ. And, you know, we became friends. So that's how that happened.
And see, that's something I'd love to see happen is.
So that's why I tagged him on one of your posts.
I did see that. See that. Thank you for that. Thank you.
No, my love.
But yeah, no, I had something. I was going to say something after that. And I can't remember now.
That's all right.
But yeah, so we'll see how Saturday goes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, this was it. That I will be going live at least once at the event
on Saturday.
On Saturday,
I'll be looking for it.
So,
what time do you think you're gonna go live?
I'm thinking 10:30, 11 o'clock, something like that.
Okay.
The protest is
10:30.
We're holding the protest in Springdale, Arkansas, 10 a.m. to noon.
So that's like 9 o'clock my time, right?
No, that's actually 11 o'clock your time. That would be 11 to 1 for you.
Okay. So I'll try to take my lunch
an
around that time. I'll try to take my lunch around that time.
Yeah, around noon for you, yeah.
I don't need to join into the live. I'll just be one of the spectators.
Right
okay?
Right
for sure. And
I may tag you and just say, hey, I don't know.
Hey, no, I mean, I would, but I don't want to take, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to take,
I hear
you feel me?
I feel you.
There's a focus. Yeah, there's an objective.
I appreciate that.
And for those that got questions for you, like you're available.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm, Absolutely. Mm-hmm. This is exciting.
I'm very excited. And I know
when there's more, then I'll, you know what I'm saying? If there's another one, I have to come full support for sure. Not contingent.
I look forward to more. We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see. Because this is it's a joint project. The Day of Action is a joint project between Zen Education Project and Black Lives Matter in the classroom.
Town hall meeting with questions from white folks. That shit is like questions like, how are you gonna fuck up my history? Like, how are you gonna fuck up the history I know? And then you use like a platform, like, all right, let's talk about Cotton's Rebellion. What did you learn about
Bacon's
that?
Rebellion.
Bacon's Rebellion. I know, Tom Cotton. It's stuck in my head. I was about to call Dan Whitfield Cotton. Anyway. I know, right? Sacrilege.
Yeah, don't insult the man.
But it's like, yeah, let's talk about this. What does that mean to you? I didn't know anything about it. All right, raise a hand. Who knows about it? All right. So does somebody want to say it, or do you want me to educate? Do you know what I'm saying? Or who wants to comply, like agree with what I'm about to say? Because that's the objective of this town hall, is for all of us to put our knowledge, combine our knowledge together. And that's what this whole truth and education is coming from.
Exactly. And going to Bacon's Rebellion, what the history books don't tell you, and we talked about this also, is dude, talk about it. Last season episode. We're recapping the entire year. But Bacon's Rebellion, what is not mentioned in the books is, one, Bacon's motive. It wasn't against the establishment.
No.
He was going for land.
Period.
And used people to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm.
And used them to the point that, too, literally white privilege was written into the books at the time, right after that.
Period.
And I've read an argument where from Bacon's Rebellion, that's what established what we know as slavery today in America. Whereas I would make the case that it was already established before then, but not written into the books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would For those that want to correct me or want to challenge that thinking, you can check out the Jim Crow Museum website. They have a wonderful timeline that goes from 1619, even before 1619, all the way through the civil rights, if not further.
Period.
And so, yeah, it's.
And I mean,
the slavery we know today has been around well before Bacon's Rebellion, is my point.
My thing is, I would love for people to come to the event and let's get some information. Let's rally together. Let's bring up more opportunities for us to rally together and try to change legislation. But I implore anyone that watches you and that becomes your fan, I want everybody to watch Jared's humility. Jared has amazing humility. Jared loves saying, hey, I didn't know that. A grown ass man that I was going to say 40 years old. Middle-aged man.
Yeah.
That will acknowledge, I don't know that.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's against their vocabulary. That's against their whole DNA. But that act of acknowledgement of lack of information or so forth and so on is profound. Like, that is just like, oh my God, I needed
Speaking
that.
of, you reminded me that during one of my interviews yesterday, speaking of humble, and I can't remember which one it was, but they asked if I knew that a few years ago, Arkansas had passed legislation that banned any teaching from the Howard Zinn People's History of the United States. Like, Arkansas legislation actually banned that book from being taught in the classroom. And it's like, no, I didn't know that. I didn't hear that. And now I'm going to have to go back and look. I'm going to have to research that because now I honestly didn't know that. But if that's true, then yeah, I broke the law.
Oh, don't say that, Jared. Did you really say that?
I did. I mean, I was like, I was teaching. I mean, we weren't doing it every day, but yeah, no, there were times where I was reading from Young People's History of the United States of America. Yeah, that was also written by Howard Zinn. So,
I didn't know that.
And yeah, that's how I've learned more about Columbus and just the atrocities he committed. First day on the beach, they would make wonderful servants, and we could subjugate them with 3 armed men.
It's terrible. Like, you didn't even look at them as humans. You could care less what their history or their identity was. And that mindset, that level of lack of compassion is where, a lot of people's ancestry derives from. They're like, compassion, what's that?
Yeah,
that's so foreign. Get out of here. That means I'm weak, right? It's like, no. It takes a very strong person to be compassionate. It's freedom and compassion and strength and compassion.
Absolutely.
Because you have to fight your animal urges to say, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck that thing. I don't give a fuck. Mm-hmm. It's like, no. That thing is human, just like me. Let me give a fuck. It takes a lot of energy to be compassionate. So there you go.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, baby. How long we got?
And on that note, I think we're out of time. Monet was just about to ask, and I'm like, let me get there. So with that being said, that was Monet, is always a pleasure talking with you. You
know what? I'm gifted with a brother that lives in Arkansas that I love with every ounce of my heart, 100%. So this isn't a goodbye. Yeah, we are definitely coming back. We're just taking some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Need to recoup, need to recenter ourselves. Yeah. Something about iron sharpening iron, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So.
And I gotta be there for the very next rally, for real.
I'm looking for more. I'm looking forward to more opportunities to do that.
1,000%. I'm here.
So that
and we still have some business to do.
Yeah, the job's never done.
No.
Right.
We need a domain.
Compassion doesn't end when we close the computer, right?
Nope, surely doesn't. Every day.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, love.
And on that note, we'll see you guys next time. Love y'all. Bye.